Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, welcome in, everybody. Sports Daily on a Thursday, a big, crowded, jam-packed Thursday. It was a rough day in Manhattan yesterday on a couple of different fronts. One before we went on the air and one after regarding the Naquan Tomlin situation. We'll get into that. We've got our betting insider, Chelsea Messenger, joining us a little later in this hour. Top of the next hour, Tim Fitzgerald. Good timing for Fitz as we've got this Tomlin situation to navigate. We've got the Colin Klein situation to navigate. All kinds of stuff to go over with Fitz. We'll do that a little bit later in the show as well. We have massive day of giveaways. We've got tickets to all kinds of stuff for you. We've got movie tickets. We've got lights tickets. We've got music tickets. Turnpike Troubadours. It's a concert I'm excited about. That's coming up at Intrust Bank Arena, new to our giveaway list. We've got Shocker basketball tickets for the game against South Dakota State this weekend. So we'll be giving stuff away constantly. Just keep your finger on that IHOP hotline at 869-1240. It'll be good. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor here with you. We've also got Thursday Night Football, which you can hear from Westwood One right here on KFH and on the Odyssey app. You can tune into KFH tonight for Thursday Night Football. Patriots Steelers. Simply download the Odyssey app and search for KFH at kickoff. We'll get into that from a betting perspective with Chelsea in just a little bit. I haven't looked at the line yet, but it feels like even if it's like 13, the under's a good play on there. Tommy, how are you this morning?
I'm good. I'm good. You were going through all the giveaways we had. I'm wondering, do you feel like Santa Claus today? Like you're giving away all of these presents and gifts and everything?
We love
like, I mean, you're basically Kris Kringle here on the show.
We got our finger on the pulse of a lot of different things happening around town, and one of our favorite things to do is to give stuff away. And we'll keep doing that as much and as often as we can. We just want to say thank you to everybody, all our listeners, for tuning in. You can call in. You can send us a message on our video streams, by the way, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. You can find us there as well each day. Tommy, the news of the night and the day after we left the air was Naquan Tomlin. So TJ Cleland for us at K-Witch, he was there, and he was telling me about the student section chanting essentially to free Naquan Tomlin as Tomlin is sitting on the bench, and it was kind of awkward and everything else. And I'm like, wait, Tomlin was on the bench with the team? He's like, yeah. I was like, oh, that's interesting. That's got to be a good sign, right? A sign that things are progressing well and, going through. Well, then yesterday, so that was on Tuesday night. Then yesterday, we get word that there is a student protest outside of the president, outside of his house. And I was like, all right, that's interesting. Well, then we get word that Naquan Tomlin stopped by Richard Linton's house in the protest. And I was like, that's a pretty bold move, but okay. And then we get the weirdest, strangest email from Gene Taylor saying they're not allowed to talk about this situation, but now they are allowed to say that Naquan Tomlin can no longer be a part of the team. And an awkward, passive-aggressive, we want what's best for Naquan Tomlin, but we continue to... Look, I don't know what happened, and I need to hear from Jerome Tang. The fear now is, of course, that K-State's president, Richard Linton, got his feelings hurt, as university administrators tend to do, got his feelings hurt, and basically booted Naquan Tomlin off the team, went above Gene Taylor and Jerome Tang's head, made Gene Taylor be the fall guy, right? And now there's real concern among K-State faithful that it's going to drive Jerome Tang away. That's the doomsday scenario here. And it doesn't seem all that unlikely to me, by the way, as a personal aside opinion, just because I've dealt with high-level administrators like presidents and those kinds of... I'm not sure there are bigger egos that exist in the professional world. No offense if any are listening right now. It's just my own personal experience. So I don't know what's going on here. And I say this with a smile on my face because I can't believe it, but I can believe it because I've seen this kind of thing before. I've seen great coaches get run off because administrators have their feelings hurt. I've seen like all kinds of stuff. So as I see this happen, I'm like, yeah, I could see it. The fear that K-State people have right now, I'm like, oh, yeah, I could see it. I don't know what's going on. I need to hear from Jerome Tang. Like, is Tang good with all this? That's what I want to know. Like, it's going to really suck for them to not have Naquan Tomlin this year. I think Naquan Tomlin, if it was a bar fight with a bouncer, right? If that's really what happened and it was disorderly conduct and the legal system's playing itself out, and that's all it was, this is ridiculous. If it's more than that, we need to know that. And more important than anything, we need to know that Jerome Tang was okay with this decision, or is he going to be furious that one of his best players, who he cares for clearly, was just kicked off the team because of pettiness by a university president? I need to hear these things.
There's no way in hell Jerome Tang is okay with this. Not a chance.
It wouldn't make any sense, not based on what we've heard.
And the reason why is because Jerome Tang prides himself on disciplining and teaching his players in his way and having control over his program. We've seen that countless times over the course of the short tenure that Jerome Tang has had in Manhattan. He's done that this season. Will McNair didn't play in a game last week because I believe he skipped class and didn't go, and Jerome Tang held him out of a game. Like, Jerome Tang has extremely high standards, but Jerome Tang leads that program, not Richard Linton, not the president of the university. It is Jerome Tang's program, and I don't see a scenario whatsoever where Coach Tang is in support of this decision.
Well, no, I do think that it's possible. A couple of things. One, if you're being told, like, you have to be on your absolute best behavior and don't screw this up, and then you show up to a protest at the president's house, that's a bad decision for Naquan Tomlin. Like, you're poking the bear at that point, right? If the president is the person who's had control of this the whole time, and that's what we're trying to figure out, is like who wanted this suspension to still be in place. That's the part we don't know. But let's just say you're Jerome Tang, you're like, Naquan, you got to be on your best behavior. That was a very stupid thing you did, and you've got to earn it back. And then you show up to the people that are concerned about your behavior and basically wave it in their face as the students are protesting. That's a stupid decision on Naquan Tomlin's part. And so Jerome Tang could be like, dude, I told you, best behavior, bad decision. Like, what am I supposed to do here? Like, I think that possibility certainly
But you
exists.
still have a scenario where the president of the university is undermining the head coach of the program, right?
Maybe, unless the president said, hey, here's the situation. Like, I already want to kick him off. He's got to be on his best. Like, if there was clear communication to, here is the thing that needs to happen, and then it didn't happen, that's one thing. The other thing is, like, at some point, and I know that it's being like oddly shrouded in like trying to use NCAA and federal rules to say we can't tell you what happened. Okay.
Crap.
Well, we know what the police say happened, right? And we know, so it was disorderly conduct. If it was another student involved in the fight off campus, that's one thing, but that we're not getting any indication by firsthand accounts or anything else that it was that. It was a scuffle that ended up with a bouncer, right? Again, bad decision, dumb decision. Can't do that. Is it worth getting kicked off the team? Absolutely not. So, I think that we just need to hear and I'm just trying to lay out different scenarios. I already told you what I think the most likely scenario is, based on experience, reading between the lines and things. But I can also tell you, Twitter is a very bad place to try and get real emotion. You got a small group of people, sometimes with large megaphones, making proclamations that may not be true. That happens all the time. So I need to hear from Jerome Tang on this. Like, is Tang on board or not?
I will say that one of those people that has the really loud megaphones, it's talking about this a lot, is the guy that we're going to have on the program next hour. I mean, Tim Fitzgerald has been very open about this.
Yeah.
And
I'll talk to Fitz about
He's been very blunt about his assessment of the situation and about how the president of Kansas State undermined Jerome Tang.
Yeah, okay.
You can Well, I just want to say
Fitz in one of his tweets said, "Let me be blood. I have not talked to Gene Taylor." So he's making it as clear as he can that these are guesses on his part too. And I don't want to treat guesses as fact.
But you can
so
also,
I'm trying to lay out different scenarios.
Any reasonable, logical person can connect the dots with the things that Jerome Tang has said throughout this suspension of Naquan Tomlin. He said things like, we're treating it as a season-ending injury. We just, we don't know. Does that sound like a coach that he's the one that's made that decision? No, like in retrospect, looking back on it, this is a decision that was made over his head. And Jerome Tang
you're
is just
saying that as fact, you're saying that as fact, and we just don't know that that's fact.
It's logical to connect the dots that way. Am I assuming something? Sure. I mean, absolutely, but it's laid out in front of us in the way that this is all went down. Maybe I'm wrong. I doubt it. I think this is the way that this went down because you can connect the dots and read between the lines pretty easily on this.
Yep, you can. I don't want to speak things as truths that we are. I want to make. I just want to make it really. I want to make it clear to people. I know. No,
I'm giving my opinion on what I think happened. I don't know.
People have to understand that these are our opinions, right? That's why I need to hear from Jerome Tang. I just want to make sure listeners don't have us like. I don't want this soundbite of like us saying, well, this is what, because
I'm not reporting on anything. I'm telling you what I think happened. I don't live in Manhattan. I wasn't at the president's house. I'm following along with it, but I'm also an intelligent enough person. I think, I mean, I might be limited intelligent, but I'm intelligent enough to, I think, be able to discern at least a likely scenario that probably went down here.
I'm going to call it a possible scenario, not a likely scenario, because I don't have enough of the information firsthand. Every ounce of information I have on this, other than what we've heard from Jerome Tang and in the email from Gene Taylor yesterday, is secondhand information, right? The only thing firsthand we have is what Tang has said and what Gene Taylor said yesterday. What Gene Taylor said yesterday is very out of character for Gene Taylor. Gene Taylor is typically a very forthcoming and a very open book kind of person. And yesterday's statement was very doctored up basically by a university's communications department.
100% it was.
If people have listened to me on this show, you know how I feel about that stuff. I have raked Wichita State over the coals over the years for acting that way. I have praised K-State mostly and KU often for their front-facing nature to these types of things and getting out in front of them. And that's not what's happening now. And that's what makes this all so strange. Like, for the university at the top levels to never say a word about Naquan Tomlin and then all of a sudden step in and be like, well, we've been a part of this all along. That doesn't jive. That doesn't make a lot of sense. And so Jerome Tang has been the mouthpiece for this punishment, whether it was his decision, which up until yesterday, Tommy, I thought it was. We talked about Jerome Tang's standards all the time.
But in retrospect, going back and hearing the way that he's been talking about this with the knowledge of what happened yesterday, okay, then at that point, like, man, like some of the things he did say as far as like, we're treating it like a season-ending injury. We don't know how. It's like, okay, well, if you're the guy that's in charge of the standards and the decisions like that, then how do you not know? And I didn't question it at the time because I didn't really think much of it. Now, after what happened yesterday, okay, yeah, It starts to make a lot more sense. And that's where I draw that conclusion. The other thing, I mean, you're talking about what we can't do on this show. The other thing we can't do on this show is just sit back and say, well, since we don't really know the facts, we're not really going to talk about it. No. Like we can draw,
absolutely
we
not.
Can draw our
I just
own
want people to know
on
which
this.
is which.
And
right.
We can draw.
I just want people to understand that.
I'll be the first to admit I'm not a journalist. I know you are. I'm not a journalist. Like, I'm going to go ahead and draw my conclusions on what I think most likely happened, even though I don't have sources I'm citing. All I'm doing is I'm gathering the information that I'm reading that's public, and I'm drawing my own opinion and conclusion off of it. If I'm wrong, I guess I'm wrong. But I think in this scenario, it's pretty easy to understand what's happening right now.
It's a really thing. We were going through scripts yesterday as this information and news was all breaking. And it's like, all right, so we've got to like just present the facts as we know them. But at the same time, it is important to provide some perspective sometimes as reporters to the situation and why it's odd, right? Like what makes this unique? What makes this strange? And so trying to do that yesterday was really difficult because, like had Gene Taylor been at the forefront of all the Naquan Tomlin stuff from the beginning, what happened yesterday wouldn't have been that weird, but he hasn't been, right? And when you see Naquan Tomlin on the bench, you're like, he's progressing. Maybe he'll be back soon. He's with the team right now.
I was never concerned about Gene Taylor not being involved in the process because Jerome Tang has always been the guy in charge of those standards, right? So it never like struck me as odd that Gene Taylor wasn't involved before yesterday. And then yesterday happens and I'm like, whoa, okay. Like this is coming from the athletic director who's not been involved in this.
I'll present another observation. I have no doubt Gene Taylor's been involved in it. He just hasn't been at the forefront of the communication in it.
Yes.
So if an observation here, if Jerome Tang has been talking about this from the beginning and something had changed, Jerome Tang would be the one to talk about it again. If Jerome Tang's not going to say, hey, Gene Taylor, will you say this for me? Right. Yes. Like I so draw the conclusions that you need to draw.
You can easily
here
draw
they're
them
right there.
This is coming from the president of the university who is undermining his head basketball coach and probably his athletic director at the same time. That doomsday situation that you lined out a few minutes ago, I think is absolutely on the table. If I'm Jerome Tang, why in the hell would I want to continue in Manhattan if I've got a university president who's undermining my program?
Let's say that is happening. I still do think it is a possible scenario that this is why I want to hear from Tang, right? Like, of course, he would be upset if that happened. But again, and look, I've had these situations in work. Like you oversee somebody, you like that person, they do something dumb, and you tell them, if you don't stop, I can't protect you anymore. Like, I can't save your job if you keep doing that sort of dumb thing. And they do it anyway, and you got to be like, I can't help you anymore. I'm sorry. Like, love you, but you did this to yourself. So I do think in all of these scenarios, if Naquan Tomlin was on the absolute thinnest ice and everybody was aware of that, and he made the decision to go thumb his nose in the face of the person that he's trying to convince he deserves to be back on the team, is that, that something that would drive...
Jacob, why is this in the hands of the university president in the first place?
When a student athlete gets in a fight?
What I'm saying is that, yes, like I understand. And that was in the statement too, that the university president, when it's misconduct or whatever, has the final say on all of that. But if the importance is Jerome Tang and Jerome Tang is the head coach of the program, then I think at that point, isn't it fair? Wouldn't it be fair for the university president to defer to the head coach of the program and say, look, you are the one in charge of the standards on your team and the decisions with discipline and things like that. I understand I'm the final say in it, but I trust you in the decisions that you make. Right?
I think all situations are unique. So no, I don't unilaterally agree with that. So
you may be very well correct in Jerome Tang saying to Tomlin, look, there's not a whole lot I can do for you at this point, man. You screwed up. You made a bad decision. It's out of my hands. But should it have been out of his hands in the first place? I think that's the real question.
Well, I don't know. I mean, we all would like to not have we'd all like that sort of unilateral power, but we're not going to get it.
He's the head coach of the basketball program at Kansas State University.
I understand, but he's not the highest authority on campus. So like it'd be like not having who's the president at KU? I don't even know.
The chancellor is Doug Girard. I think that's the equivalent of the university president. There you go.
It'd be like after Arterio Morris was in trouble, and I'm not equating what happened between these two athletes. Don't misunderstand me, but it would be like that situation presenting itself and then not stepping in to say, I'm making the decision.
But the bottom line is that in different situations, like if you want to talk about Arterio Morris, and I don't know the inside information on that, but what I do know is the way that everything was communicated publicly, the PR aspect of it. Everyone was in lockstep lead behind the scenes, but when the decision was made, Travis Goff, Doug Girard, Bill Self, all in lockstep, publicly with the PR element of this. That's not the way that this went down yesterday in Manhattan.
Yeah, you can't. I agree with you. I don't misunderstand what stinks here to me, and where I agree with the masses that this seems really petty and stupid, and I can't believe that this happened this way, and all of those things. I'm just saying I really want to hear from Jerome Tang. Like, really, he's been given 2 raises by these K-State administrators. I don't imagine that he has a bad relationship with them. And again, this doesn't make any sense to Gene Taylor's history. I don't. We're going to get a very strong opinion from Fitz. There's no question. He's made that very public and front-facing. I just want to hear from the head coach. That's what I want more than anything right now, is to hear from the head coach. I don't know when that's going to happen. They're on the road next. I don't know if he hasn't put anything out on social media. He hasn't. Here's what else. When there's smoke, there's fire, I think. He has done nothing to publicly support this decision. Not one thing. Not on social media. Not, in a more official capacity. Not one thing has been done so far from the head coach to show support to the decision that was made yesterday. That also matters. 869-1240 is the number to call. All right, we're going to take a brief pause from this, so not to fret. We will come back to this because we've got Tim Fitzgerald at the top of the next hour. We're going to look at some betting tonight and this weekend in the NFL with Chelsea Messenger when we return. On the way out, let's give away some tickets. Let's go Shocker tickets, Jad. We've got a pair of tickets to the game against South Dakota State at Intrust Bank Arena. Tip-off at 6 o'clock on Saturday. Pair of tickets right now to the first caller on the IHOP hotline, 869-1240. We'll be right back.
On the line is the host of the Daily Tip and Odyssey Sports Betting Insider, Chelsea Messenger. Insider calls are presented by BetMGM. Go check out all of the latest lines today on the BetMGM app. Also, be sure to check out the Daily Tip podcast for more of Chelsea Messenger analysis. Just search BetMGM wherever you find your podcasts.
All right, welcome back in, everybody, to Sports Daily. It is time for our weekly visit with our pal Chelsea Messenger, joining us to go over the betting week here, mostly now to the NFL. Chelsea, I don't know what kind of fool we have to be. It's Zappy, Trubisky. We're going to have Zeke Elliott probably with about 40 carries in this game. This is going to be tough tonight. How are you today?
Yeah, it feels like they're testing our football fandom, doesn't it? Over the last few weeks, we had some really bad games, most of them involving the Patriots. I had to witness the Panthers offense in person. I went to the Panthers-Titans game. Man, that was bad. So I think this is one of those cases where sports betting comes to the rescue, because if you ever want to make a game interesting, you put some money on it. You place some bets on it. That is literally the only way that I think tonight's game is interesting.
I looked at the line for this game, Chelsea, and it looked like at first that I was maybe on the wrong page and looking at an Iowa Hawkeyes game. I mean, the over-under is 30 for this game tonight. Is there an angle with that over-under?
Man, primetime unders have been so hot, though. I believe they're 29-9, maybe 29-10 after, I think, the last game. But
it's at 30. It's at 30.
Hey, remember last week when you told me that the total was so low on Iowa's point total that maybe there's a chance you take them? Remember that?
I do. I know. I got you.
So sometimes they can't make these numbers low enough. Like, would anybody be shocked if this game ended, 14-10? I don't think anybody would be shocked.
No, because you got to have probably, don't you have to have about 3 touchdowns most likely to get to 30? I don't know if we're like 3 touchdowns in this game. I don't know. But out of just pure principle in the matter, I can't bet unders. I hate doing it. Basically, if I bet the under, I've got to just not watch the game. Like, turn it off. Don't even watch a second. I don't know how people do, and I get it. Like, it's I don't know. I just want offense. Is that too much to ask?
Well, watch another game. That's the thing. You don't have to watch it. You can bet the under and watch a Hallmark Christmas movie. Doesn't matter, or you could watch, the Pacers and the Bucks. That total, I think, is 255. So if you want to see
there
offense,
we go
to the NBA in-season tournament. But here's the angle on the Steelers and Patriots game tonight. I don't think there's going to be a lot of points scored, but I do think there are some props worth looking at. Because remember a couple weeks ago when everybody was all up about the Steelers offense. Oh, they got 400 yards of offense. They only scored 16. So, I'm not buying into them scoring points, but I do think there's some value maybe in the props market. Anytime there is a backup quarterback, you look towards the receiver that he has the most experience with and the most chemistry and the most reps, because obviously backup quarterbacks aren't getting the reps that first-team quarterbacks normally get. We saw it kind of with the Bengals. Jake Browning feeding the ball to Jamar Chase because he'd thrown to him the most. I think that's going to be the deal with Mitch Trubisky and Deontay Johnson. When Mitch Trubisky was the starter, every single game he started last year, Deontay Johnson had the most targets of anybody on the team in every single game. So I think that's the way to go. A number that is very low tonight, 41.5 receiving yards for Deontay Johnson, who certainly has big play potential. Like, Mitch Trubisky's got to throw it to somebody. And I do think you can get some yards on this Patriots defense, who is giving up the 8th most receiving yards to opposing wide receivers. So I think that's the way you play it. You don't count on the Steelers to score points. You count on them to at least get some yards here. So I'll go Deontay Johnson over 41.5 receiving yards for -110.
Okay, so following up on that, and you mentioned the difficulty in scoring points. I'm looking at odds for anytime touchdown scores, and I'm going through the names, and obviously there are some injuries on both teams and that sort of thing, and I'm looking at maybe Najee Harris or Pat Freiermuth and Deontay Johnson, some other names. Talk me out of this. Tell me that I'm crazy if I throw a little bit of money on no touchdowns being scored at plus 1,400 for the game tonight.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. Why would you place an anytime touchdown bet in a game that is fully capable of scoring no touchdowns? So either do that, or you can look at the field goal kickers.
There you go.
I'm trying to remember the name of the Steelers kicker, but
Boswell, Chris Boswell. Yeah.
he's been busy lately. So wouldn't be shocked if he goes over his line. I believe it's 1.5, maybe somewhere to look as well. But man, this game is really testing, if I really truly enjoy football. This is a true test. I will say Pat Freiermuth has been more involved in the offense since Matt Canada has been expelled from Pittsburgh. So maybe somebody to look at as well.
Yeah, look, I'm with you on the field goal thing, I think, but I'm also with you on, moving on to the next one. So we won't punish ourselves anymore with that one. When we look at the weekend in the NFL, there are, we've got some headliner games and then sort of some stinkers to some degree, but there are some really good ones as we look to the NFL this weekend. I guess we can start with the Chiefs, Bills. This feels dangerous. The line has moved toward the Bills, I believe. The Bills are desperate. The Chiefs kind of had a stinker in the last one. What are your initial thoughts on Bills Chiefs? I'm seeing it at 1.5 right now. Is it for the Chiefs at home?
Yeah, line's moving towards the Bills, or people clearly are putting some money on the Bills, but I'd still be on the Chiefs here. Like the Chiefs, when's the last time you got Patrick Mahomes at home minus 125 on the money line, just based on value alone? And I'm sure you guys have discussed this. The Chiefs coming off a loss, absolute wagon, 18-3 straight up, coming off a loss in the Patrick Mahomes era. So that is enough of a stat for me. And plus, you're going against a Bills team that's been wildly inconsistent. I think the Bills have certainly top-end potential, but when it comes to closing out games, what's their record in overtime? Like 0-6? So if this game is coming down to the wire, which is the team you trust more? Like, yeah, the Chiefs didn't look good against the Packers, but still, I think if I had to trust one side more, it would always be the Chiefs at home, and it would always be Patrick Mahomes, especially against a Bills team who we don't know what we're getting week to week. So got to be the Chiefs for me, minus 125 on the money line. I'll take that.
So I'm looking at the two quarterbacks in this game, Mahomes and Allen, and looking at, different prop numbers for them. And there's been a lot that's been made of the interceptions that Josh Allen has thrown throughout the course of the season, and, how he's getting a little sloppy from time to time. But honestly, Patrick Mahomes hasn't been super sharp either. And if I'm looking at their interception numbers, you can get plus money right now on Patrick Mahomes throwing over one interception or more in the game on Sunday against the Bills. And I'm going back and looking at his game-to-game stats. I mean, he's thrown a pick in 5 of the last 7 games, Patrick Mahomes has. I'm thinking because that's plus money, that might be a good bet to make.
I guess, but interceptions are not a bet that I like making. Just because, like, what's the top end? Like, maybe 2? Like, the bets that I like making are ones that can go over it by a lot. Like, when you play a receiving prop for somebody, take Jamar Chase on Monday night. His line was like 50.5 or something. I think he went over 100 yards. Like, you're not going to see that type of variance on an interception prop. And plus, these have so much chaos attached to them because sometimes he'll throw a pick when he's not supposed to. It'll tip off the hands of his receiver and into somebody else's hand. And the same goes the other way. Sometimes it should have been an interception. It hits the defender in the hands and he drops it. So I'm not a big fan of interception props. I get what you're saying. The value's there and fading, a big name quarterback, but still, I don't think it's a bet that I'll be making.
What about Eagles Cowboys? That's the other headline game this weekend. It, I think, is the highest total of the weekend. You've got 2 offenses that are chugging. You've got one of the defenses who's really struggled lately. This one, going to live up to the hype, and we'll see a lot of points, and I think it probably will.
Yeah, this one's tough because I think there's 2 very important trends in each way. Because you look at the Eagles, the Niners were my best bet of the week last week because situationally speaking, the Eagles have been on a gauntlet of a schedule dating back to the first time they played the Cowboys. 1-score game, that one was close. Then you go on the road to Arrowhead. You have to play the Chiefs, come from behind, win there. Then after that, you go to overtime with the Bills. Then you get bruised and bloodied up by the Niners, one of the most physical teams in all of the NFL. So it just looks like a tough stretch for the Eagles, who are limping into this one. So you look at the Cowboys, you say, okay, the Cowboys are aside. Does anybody want to trust the Cowboys in a big game against a good team? Like, what's their best win this year? Against the Seahawks at home? Seriously, look at their schedule. I feel like when it comes to good teams, this is not a Cowboys team that I really want to trust. So I don't think that I'm going to play a side in this one. If I had to, I think I, maybe would play the Cowboys, but still, if you think this game is close and you want to put your faith in Mike McCarthy at the end of it, like, no, thank you. I don't think I'm playing a side here.
Taking a look at futures here for a second, Chelsea, I know a lot's been made, at least in the AFC, about all the injured quarterbacks and the teams that are battling for playoff spots and to win their divisions and wild cards and all of that. Do you think there's a play to be made? And it could be in either conference, but I'm looking at the AFC right now, but a play to be made right now on a potential conference winner in the futures market because of the injuries to all the different quarterbacks?
Well, I think the NFC to me is still a two-team race. Clearly, you just heard what I said about the Cowboys.
Yeah.
I don't believe in the Cowboys. So right now in the futures market, to win the NFC, the Niners are plus 130. The Eagles are plus 280. You can play both and still win yourself some money, because as long as both of those are plus money, like, you will win a little bit, like, if either one wins. So I think that's the way to go. You guarantee yourself some money, not guarantee, but still, I think in the NFC, that feels more like a two-team race than the AFC. I feel like there's some variance in the AFC where there are a few other teams that I think maybe could contend. Now that the Bengals are out of the race, maybe the field gets a little shorter. But I don't know. I feel like the Ravens can hang with just about anybody. I think they're still getting the most value of just about any team. Ravens to win the Super Bowl is 6-1. I think that's probably the best value coming out of the AFC. So I think I'm pretty strong on the NFC. Not sure who comes out of the AFC.
All right, Chelsea, before we let you go, what are some of your favorite bets outside of those big-time headline games that you've got on the NFL weekend?
Yeah, I got a couple ones in the NFL. First, let's look at the over between the Bengals and the Colts. I think you're getting a nice little value on the Bengals because they have a backup quarterback, but we saw him in primetime. Jake Browning can throw it around a bit. Maybe he's not going to put up the elite numbers that he put up on Monday night, but still, it's a passing attack that I think can at least score some points. This one's kind of fluctuated because there was supposed to be some weather coming into Cincinnati. Maybe it's not as bad as they thought now. So we've seen it rise from 43.5 to 44. But I think both those offenses can get it going enough to go over that total. I think Chiefs money line is probably my best bet of the week. I really like that one quite a bit. And then when do the college football semifinal games start? Because I definitely like some plays in those games. Can we talk about those?
Yeah, let's hit them.
All right. So first off, going to go with the over in Texas and Washington. I think if I had to pick a side, I'd go with Washington getting the points, just because we know Texas defense does one thing very well, and that is stop the run. That's not Washington's MO, though. They have a Heisman-level quarterback, and they have 3 NFL-ready wide receivers. So even if you have one good defensive back, like, those other 2 guys are going to beat you. So I do think Washington scores some points here, and Quinn Ewers has looked fantastic over the past few games as well. I think we see an absolute shootout there. The other game I'm kind of stumped on because the public is absolutely all over Alabama. We have seen that line shortened from, I believe, 2.5 now down to 1 in some spots. But Michigan's offensive line is so good. And when you can establish the run and really run it down just about anybody's throat, that gives you such a leg up. But it's hard for me to go against Nick Saban with extra preparation. So I think I'm going to stay away from that one. But I do like the over in Washington and Texas. I believe Steve Sarkisian certainly will have something prepped for his offense as well with all that extra time.
Yeah, I'd get those lines now because they may move. We get them on January 1st, so we'll have more time to digest it as well. Chelsea, we appreciate it. Suffer through tonight with the rest of us. We'll get there. I like your Deontay Johnson. I like that Boswell kicker prop too. So we'll see if we can survive until Sunday, I guess.
Yeah, just check your sportsbook app in the morning. You don't have to watch the game.
There you go. All right, Chelsea, we appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thanks for having me.
There goes Chelsea Messenger, the host of the Daily Tip and Odyssey Sports Betting Insider. Insider calls presented by BetMGM. Go check out all the latest lines today on the BetMGM app. Let's do another one of our giveaways here. Jad, this time let's do Wonka. You can check out the new Wonka movie at Boulevard Theaters in Town West Square. Special sneak peek of the new musical starring Timothy Chalamet at 7 o'clock. That's a week from today, Thursday, December 14th. Pair tickets to the winner right now on the IHOP hotline, 869-1240. Chad will get us a winner. We'll come back with more Sports Daily right after this.
All right, welcome back, everybody. It's Sports Daily on KFH. Our thanks to Chelsea Messenger, our betting insider. If you missed any of that conversation, all you have to do is go to the free Odyssey app, and you'll be able to listen back to that for all of her betting tips and insights for the weekend, Jacob.
Yeah, Tommy, it's going to be rough tonight. We'll just but look, it's not going to be rough because I don't think the game has interesting components to it. It's just going to be rough because the style of the game will be rough, right? You got backups. But Pittsburgh's absolutely a playoff contending team, and New England has a pretty good defense. So, like, the game it's not like when we have, like, Panthers, whatever, where neither team is any good or anything. I don't think that's the scenario. New England's not very good, but they're capable, and Pittsburgh's trying to cling to this. It's just the style of the game will be tough.
I found an angle that I like, by the way, betting wise for the game tonight. So I believe and I agree with Chelsea as far as the primetime unders are concerned. And with this game and with the backup quarterbacks, I just don't think they're going to score at all. So you can get the Patriots at +6. And I think that's fair. I mean, the Patriots are not good, but man, the Steelers don't have Kenny Pickett, obviously, Mitch Trubisky starting. They're banged up, all of that. So you can get the Patriots +6. And if you bet the under 30 as well, it's kind of a 2-for-1 bet. You know, you bet $10, you get 32 in return for that. It's like +225 in that 2-leg parlay. So I kind of like that a little bit at the Patriots +6 and under the over-under total.
Yeah, I don't hate that either. I can't in good faith bet an under. I don't think, but I could because I'm not terribly inclined. I mean, I like the Boswell kicker prop, honestly.
I kind of like the touchdown score prop.
Yeah, that's
a
fun one.
Yeah.
Now that one you could take as an under angle and have fun with, right? Like that one you
Stay
could get
out of
on
the end
board
zone.
with.
Don't score. Nobody get in.
I mean, parlay the under with Boswell field goals and a no touchdown score, and you can get some just absurd odds, and then just all bets are off. Yeah, I think you could go there. Okay, so there's more information Tommy sent me during the break there. I don't know the source of it, but again, it does serve as a good reminder on the Naquan Tomlin situation that, like, he wasn't with the team at media days. It was weird before the bar fight. Remember that. And that had slipped my mind to some degree. That's what I mean. Like, I just need to hear from Jerome Tang. That's all I need right now, is to hear from Jerome Tang. We're going to hear from Tim Fitzgerald. He's made his stance very publicly known yesterday as all this is happening. We'll get his take on it, maybe some reasoning behind it. Maybe he's got some information here this morning. We'll get into that. We'll get into the Colin Klein piece of the news yesterday in K-State as well. Lots to go over with GoPowerCat.com's Tim Fitzgerald. We'll do that on the other side here. Sports Daily coming right back at you.
Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
He's got all the insight of what you want to know and maybe some of what you don't want to know. Here's K-State insider Tim Fitzgerald.
All right, welcome back in, everybody. This is it's been a long time coming over the last 24 hours, Fitz. Welcome back into Sports Daily. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor here. I thought we would spend most of our time today talking about Colin Klein. We will, but then we get the Naquan Tomlin situation escalating and dropped into our lap yesterday. You've made your thoughts on this very publicly known. That you are blaming Richard Linton, right, without the support really of the basketball program. Have you talked to anybody in the last 12 hours or so that would give you any clearer indication that there is maybe a divide among the top here on this?
For the last 12 hours, it's like every waking hour I get more information that makes this more disturbing to me about a president that kind of went rogue. I don't know. I mean, it's in his power to do this, but he told everyone he wasn't going to do this. That this was an athletics manner, and then all of a sudden he does intervene. I will say with 100% confidence that release yesterday from Gene Taylor announcing the decision was he was ordered to do. Now, what the consequences for not doing it were, I don't know. If you'd say no to your boss, I can guess the consequences. But it was a CYA moment for the president, and kind of sums up this situation about a guy who refused to meet with the student athlete that he was banning from playing basketball at Kansas State without ever meeting the young man. And this situation is bizarre beyond belief.
The last thing I want to do, Fitz, is, pile on to the fan base. This is not the fan base's fault at all, but the select few fans that went to the president's residence to protest. Those things typically don't turn out very well, right? Like, at what point do you think there was a thought that, okay, like, this is a good idea for us to go and protest at his home? Because at that point, the president then kind of has to show strength, right? He's not going to cave to some students. He's not going to cave to some fans. He's got to, I guess, maybe do the opposite in that situation, right?
Well, let's get some clarification. I don't know that anyone actually went to his residence. His residence is on campus, just down the hill from Anderson Hall, where he works academically. And kind of to the side, but between those two, is Bosco Plaza, where it's kind of like one of their free speech areas. And the video I saw was the students were on campus in Bosco Plaza, not really in front of his home. Maybe someone was in front of his home. I don't know, but I didn't see that. But again, that is also on campus. So, yeah, these are students trying to help. It's amazing. Let's back up. Let's back up and say that I shared this information, what was going on, with my subscribers behind our paywall. Someone took that from behind my paywall and sent it to the president, who then used that as leverage to admonish people who had not spoken to me about this situation, were not my quote sources, but they felt threatened by the university president for even talking to a reporter at any. I don't understand, why he decided that was the point of escalation. But I don't know about the protests. They will continue. This is not over for the university president, and I think it just takes on a new phase now.
Fitz, let me take this in two parts. Number one, what is at issue here? Because we know Tomlin, it was weird before the season started and before the bar fight, right? There was something going on there. He was like absent from things, and then all of a sudden he was there at media day or whatever that was, and then you had the bar fight. So is the issue at play in all of this strictly based on the disorderly conduct, or is there something else here that is making this more complicated?
Well, they kind of muddied the water with bringing up NCAA stuff yesterday,
right,
that I honestly don't understand what they were bringing up. And again, I think his effort now, through his, people who believe his side or want to support him, is to spread misinformation, which is, a great sign of leadership. I've read a lot of false information. I've read information that honestly, people need to be aware that they can't just say whatever they want to on Twitter. There are slander laws. So I just think this has evolved into something really ugly. But yeah, this isn't a good moment for Richard Linden. As I said, it's now escalated to the highest level of donors at K-State, and his time at K-State, even if he survives this, will never be the same. He's altered his own trajectory with this move.
Tim, there's been a lot of talk. You mentioned everybody being loud on social media talking about it, and of course the release from Gene Taylor yesterday. The one person that's been very quiet is Jerome Tang. Do you have any kind of indication over the last 24 hours on where Jerome Tang stands on all of this? We haven't heard any kind of statement from him, nothing on social media, no interviews, nothing like that. Do you have an idea on his mindset right now?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I know Jerome, and I'm not going to say publicly I talked to him because there's a lot of threats being made behind the scenes. So I'll say that they know the kid screwed up in a way. They know he had legal obligations that had to be addressed. The last thing Jerome Tang is soft. The last thing Jerome Tang wants to do is bring in bad people just to win games. But he also doesn't want to make what was legally defined as disorderly conduct as a reason to expel a young man from a basketball program. Keep in mind, he's not expelled as a student for this off-campus incident. He's expelled as a basketball player. So it's, I think he's hurt because even while this was going on, they wanted to keep him around his support, structure. They didn't want him to get in a situation where he started to spiral sitting in an apartment alone because now he can't hang out with his teammates. He doesn't have the guidance of his coaches. He's a kid from New York City that's now sitting in the wrong Manhattan with no one around him in a really stressful time. But that's what the president wanted. The president wanted him completely cut loose from the program with no contact. So I have multiple sources that have told me that there was an incident before the game against Villanova with him and the coaching staff, and after the game when everyone was celebrated, including Naquan Tomlin climbing into the stands, with the students, that while we all saw a great basketball victory against a really well-known team, a national brand, a thrilling game, Richard Linton saw a, quote, spectacle to make me look bad. And that's just where it's become. It's become about him more than Naquan. I'm the boss. I'm going to make the decision, even if it's the wrong one, is kind of the indications I'm getting from everyone. And I think, back to Jerome Tang, I think there's just a great deal of dismay and a loss of faith in the leadership above you that is paying your bills, paying your salary.
Yeah, I mean, look, you've talked to people, I have not, but I have worked with and seen enough of the administrators at that level act this way that none of that surprises me. It happens all the time, and it blows my mind. I would say that, that level of college administrator are among some of the largest egos I've ever been around professionally. So that doesn't surprise me, but it also, I wouldn't think that also surprises Jerome Tang. This, administration has given him a lot of financial support and a lot of other things. Is this really something you think that could compromise the long-term future of something that before the last, 48 hours or so seemed so rock solid?
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, this is something I posted on social media. I mean, he's not going to leave over this. Look, if you're in a job where your boss doesn't have your back, your boss undermines you, your boss says, hey, take care of this, and then all of a sudden, no, you don't get to take care of it, I'm going to do it. If you don't feel like you're supported and you feel like you're under fire, you got to get out of there. And I've witnessed this firsthand with Frank Martin and an AD. You just can't have a boss that is undermining your program for their own ego, and that's. I know Richard Linton's convinced himself this is for the university, but really, from what I'm told from those, that have been privy to a lot of this incident, is that it became about how will this look, and it really was about how does this look for me. I got to be the boss. I got to be in charge. I can't let this be Alabama or another school where these things are shrugged off, and it's like everyone's saying, President, this is a disorderly conduct charge. This was a bar incident off campus. What? No. So it's insanity to me. It's insanity. And like I said, I don't think it's over. It's just kind of moving into a new phase.
Fitz, I think my most shocking takeaway from all of this, it kind of follows what you said at the top when you mentioned that, Jerome Tang is the furthest thing away from being soft. I think it would be different if Jerome Tang was soft and the president had said, look, I've got to step in because our head basketball coach, isn't willing to throw discipline out, at players when they screw up. He had Will McNair not playing a game what was that, last week, because I guess he maybe missed class, right? Like he didn't play in a game because of that. Like Jerome Tang is probably the one guy I think of when it comes to consequences for his players and holding standards of a program. And so that's why I think it's so shocking that the president, it looks like, has inserted himself into this situation, because Jerome Tang has a track record of holding impeccable standards for his program.
I'm with you, man. That's perfectly put. That's why all of us are like, some coaches need to be told, no, you got to suspend this guy. There was ever any doubt that he was going to be suspended. He needed to be suspended. As Jerome Tang has said many times at press conferences, if you love your children, you discipline them when they need to be disciplined. That's part of the structure of loving someone. You want them to become better. He's pretty adamant that this was never going to be, just swept under the rug and ignored. That's not at all what was going to take place. But he's already sat out 8 games before the president finally ordered this to, be ended because it's making him look bad. I just think it's, again, a horribly unfair situation. But the number one thing Jerome Tang wants right now for Naquan is to get his degree. He graduates in December. And Naquan, nobody in his family has ever graduated from college. And this would be, generational, possibly changing, to get that degree. So that's the entire effort at this point. Naquan's not technically his player anymore, but no man is going to tell Jerome Tang who he can love and care for. And that will continue to be Naquan.
Well, look, he can transfer and play right away too if he wants to, and you kind of hope he does. And there's a team right down the road that could probably use a player like him. So we'll see how that goes. We want the best for him, just like everybody else does. The other big story yesterday, Fitz, Colin Klein. I didn't think I was crazy. I didn't think I was crazy when I said Texas A&M money is for real. I don't think, to me, this doesn't seem, and I'm sure the money is great for Colin Klein. But, man, if he goes to A&M, has success for a year or two, he's going to be a head coach in the SEC. Like, to me, I know it stings, but that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. I mean, we still don't know the financial numbers. There's still been no public announcement from A&M, even though it's a done deal. Maybe there has been this morning. I don't know. I'm on the road. But we've heard numbers are going to be enormous. Some have whispered he might be the highest paid college football coach in history as of the day of the signing. Someone else in the SEC will up it by $1. But I feel safe. He'll be near doubling his salary, if not well over that, in going. Money's not everything, but let's back up and look at this. He got offered by Notre Dame, a really good offer by a really good young coach. We're talking about a guy who's gone to an ag and engineering school who is a very, very strong Christian. I didn't see a Catholic setting as, maybe the most comfortable fit for him. And then he, talked to Penn State. I don't know that he was offered. That was part of the report out of Houston. I got to be honest. I don't know that he was offered. I know James Franklin knows it. I mean, he helped recruit him to K-State. So I think there was conversation there. But he felt like that wasn't a fit. A&M is an ag and engineering school. It's kind of a traditional, I don't want to say rural because that's not really right. But when you're an ag and engineering school, you got a feel about you. And I think
pretty
he felt
rural.
comfortable. I think he really enjoyed Mike Elko. I think they hit it off, and everyone around that said that's exactly the kind of guy Colin would like. He's like Chris Kleiman. So I think that's is a good fit financially, and you nailed it, buddy. If he has a huge year, if that A&M offense flourishes, and A&M's like a breakout program in the SEC, that next SEC job he's going to be on that short list, and he wasn't going to be that coming out of Kansas State. So there's a lot of good moves here by Colin, and K-State will be just fine.
So from a financial point of view, and not even talking about the salaries and all of that, I mean, we know that A&M, generally speaking, has a ton of money, especially when it comes to the NIL efforts and all of that. So I know that really when you compare any other university for the most part, especially outside of the SEC, to what A&M can offer from an NIL perspective. It doesn't compare. But is there a scenario in your mind where there were, and I don't know if there have been any kind of struggles in the NIL space at Kansas State in this regard, but it's clearly got to be a massive step up as far as resources for players from Kansas State to, him moving to A&M, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and one of the things that the entire coaching staff is going to have to wrestle with at A&M was the overuse of the NIL. Collecting players like trophies and not fitting them together in a team atmosphere. The locker room was a mess. The egos were all out of control because most of the roster was all about NIL, how much you get. And that's just not a conducive environment to build a team. And it unfortunately, I think, was a big miscalculation. But there's no doubt A&M has unlimited resources, apparently, to try to win football. Of course, there's $75 million lighter on that unlimited because of Jimbo Fisher's contract. But they are proof that throwing money at problems doesn't fix it. There's, often deeper problems here. But, yeah, he's going to be able to get players. He's going to be out there recruiting the very elite quarterbacks in the high school ranks. And we'll see if
we may have just lost Fitz there. Fitz, do we still have you? Yeah, we may have just lost him. The other part of that, Jad, if we can reconnect quickly, I want to ask him about his Avery Johnson, of course. So we'll see if we can't reconnect with Fitz real quick here. I know he's on the road to get that piece. If not, we'll figure it out at a later date. But to the stuff with Tomlin prior, I think that this is all very inside baseball, right? There's a lot of things, and apparently Fitz is involved in some of that. None of this is out of the realm of things that I've seen before, Tommy, with the way that universities are there. All right, Fitz, do we still have you?
Yeah, I apologize.
No, you're good. We know you're on the road.
Yeah,
I
can't
before we potentially lose you again. The other piece of this is Avery Johnson. Your reporting, at least as far as Go Power Cat that I've seen, is everything with Avery for now is rock solid. Is that accurate? Good to go for next year? I mean, I think we'd have to take everything in 1 year chunks here, but all good on the Avery front.
Yep. If you're not following our YouTube channel, Go Power Cat YouTube, get over there. I've got a daily delivery video on this. He's not going anywhere. He's fired up for this opportunity. He's a starting quarterback for the bowl game in the near future at Kansas State. He literally everyone in the quarterback room left because Avery's presence is so dominating in terms of skill set. So there's no worry about that.
Fitz, I wonder with Klein, we talked about it the other day, actually yesterday, after he made the decision that, he could be, we talked about having a huge year and then being able to be a head coach in the SEC or, somewhere else. I know Colin better than obviously we do. Is the ultimate goal for him to be the head coach at Kansas State University, or is it to be a head coach at a major program? And I wonder, we don't know how long Chris Klieman will be in that position, if that's another 5 years, 10 years, whatever that looks like. Is Colin motivated to come back to Manhattan to lead the program for a long time, or does he want to be a head coach at just a prominent program?
I think he would love to be the head coach at Kansas State, but the current head coach just signed an 8-year deal. Is young, to me at least. He's young. He's in his early to mid 50s. But also you just never know how a coach feels about the NIL transfer portal environment. Now he's basically managing. You become a general manager of a professional football team as well as being a head coach in some ways. It's just the workload has just spiraled out of control for these coaches. But yeah, Colin's a head coach. I've never doubted that Colin Klein will be a head coach. Just I've doubted when he's quite ready for it to handle all this stuff. And again, kind of bringing this full circle, being a great coach or a great academic person doesn't mean you're a great leader. I mean, you're great at your job that you have now, and somehow that makes you elevate to a job with completely different responsibilities also that you're completely unproven at. So we'll see how this plays out for Colin and K-State, but Chris Kleiman isn't going anywhere. I think his next move will be retirement. And is that 2, 8, 12 years? I don't know. We'll see. But this whole world of college football has changed radically.
In an imaginary world, would Colin Klein leave being the head coach at Mississippi State to come back to K-State?
That's a great question. And again, money and fit. Eventually, at some point, the town in which you live begins to feel like home. That override home. We saw with Brent Venables. He always fended things off, and this was his alma mater, and he grew up an hour away in Salina. So you just never know what the future brings. And I'm happy for Colin. Let's be clear. I'm overjoyed for him. He finally found a great opportunity, and now he's positioned himself to be, a head coach sooner than he would have been out of K-State, or at least at a higher level. I think his move out of K-State was, the Mountain West or something like that. And now the move out of an SEC coordinator job is a Power 5 job.
Yep, I agree. And maybe a Power 5 job in the SEC. That conference has a history of doing that. One more thing, Fitz. The chances of Will Howard going to A&M feels pretty good to me. They need a quarterback. Theirs got into the portal too.
Well, they're pretty good in their quarterback room. Will Howard is not starved for attention. He has so many options now. I think the problem for Will is deciding all of the different options, because it's different schools, different systems, different NIL deals. It's insanity what's going on out there. The rent a quarterback for a year, as Matt Rule has pointed out, starts at $1.5 million. And that's just pure insanity to me, but go get
not good for them.
Bag of cash. Well, yeah.
It's good for them.
It's insanity. It's insanity. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It is.
I'm overjoyed for Will. That's so cool. I mean, that's just amazing. But yeah, it also really makes it a tough decision, because I know that USC, Washington, Oregon, Kentucky, Miami, Wisconsin, Nebraska, the schools I know of that have, Notre Dame originally, have contacted him about, being their quarterback with different NIL deals. So we'll see how it plays out. He's got a lot of decisions to make.
It makes a long and hard fought career worth it if you don't make it to the NFL. That's what I like about it. All right, Fitz, drive safe, have fun or not with this situation. Are you blacklisted? Is that where we're at right now?
I am 100% rock solid with Kansas State basketball, Kansas State football, and Kansas State athletics. Above that,
okay.
I don't know, but I'm a believer in free speech, journalism, and apple pie. I like apple pie.
Keep fighting.
Fight the power there.
Keep fighting the good fight. Yeah, apple pie. Have some extra. Enjoy it. We'll continue to follow your work. Go powercat.com, at Life of Fitz on social media. Enjoy it. Be good. We'll talk again next week.
Yep. We're having a sale right now. Go PowerCat. Go check it out.
All right. There you go. Check it out. Go powercat.com. Appreciate it. You can hear their podcast too, as well, as I learned yesterday on the Odyssey app. So that's kind of cool. But check it out. There's a lot going on there in Manhattan. Yeesh. All right. We're gonna talk about some other things maybe, because we do have other things. It's just a really wacky day. I know.
I think we just have this. Let's talk about this the rest of the hour.
I mean, we probably will. Let's be real, because there's more to break out of it. But we'll go to your calls too. 869-1240. K-State fans, chime in on this. Like, what do you think? Even if you're not a K-State fan, just a neutral observer. What are your thoughts on all of this Naquan Tomlin stuff that happened yesterday? Also, let's give away another pair of Shocker basketball tickets. Our final pair. Shockers, South Dakota State, Intrust Bank Arena. Tip-off 6 o'clock Saturday. You can go on us. All right, welcome back, everybody. Sports Daily. It's been a lot today with what's gone on in Manhattan over the last 24 hours. The Yankees trade for Juan Soto, Tommy, and a little bit of you know what's odd about this? Juan Soto, a generational talent. Any other offseason, this would be like headline craziness, all of these things. Yet this offseason, it's like, okay, neat, they traded for Juan Soto. So what's happening with Shohei Ohtani? Right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when you can steal the headlines from the Yankees acquiring Juan Soto, if you need to know about the mystique of Shohei Ohtani, that should tell you all you need to know.
The Shohei Ohtani thing is crazy with the amount of silence and secrecy around the free agency and the teams that are potentially pursuing him. And I don't know if you read, there was this big article. Media members nationally are really, really, really upset about the way that Shohei Ohtani's camp has made this whole thing happen. Allegedly, or apparently, and I think it was Buster Olney from ESPN reported on this or had a column where he was upset about it. The representatives for Shohei Ohtani have allegedly told the teams that are in pursuit of Ohtani that they cannot talk about it at all. And if they do talk about it publicly, that will hurt their chances of signing Shohei Ohtani. And so there's been this veil of secrecy around it. Dave Roberts from the Dodgers kind of broke it and kind of talked about it. And there was a lot of speculation that was going to hurt the Dodgers' chances at signing Ohtani, but nobody really knows. I think they're down to a handful of players, or a handful of teams, that is, to sign Ohtani, but nobody exactly knows who the front runner is, who it's going to ultimately be. It's kind of, I mean, it adds to that mystique of who Ohtani is and what he can bring to a team.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's no doubt about it. And the Blue Jays have felt like it for me for a little bit. Some of the Rangers have bowed out now.
The Cubs, I think, are a legitimate possibility.
Cubs
they might be
probably.
I mean, they're not going to go out and get Craig Counsell as their manager and let David Ross go unless they are wanting to take a massive swing at Shohei Ohtani.
I think Toronto makes the most sense. I have for a long time. I've thought, well, Toronto, Seattle seemed like a long shot, because I thought they may be tearing it down, and I think they probably are. The Rangers were a legit possibility. Don't kid yourself. But Toronto makes so much sense because they need it, right? Like, they've been close. It is an unreal fan base in a huge market that people don't like. Toronto's massive, man. And I spent a week there, and that fan base is awesome. And they are like, they are Blue Jay crazy. It's a team that has been trying for a long time to get back to its former glory, and it's a team loaded with young talent too. So it's not like you bring Shohei in and you're, like, if I'm Shohei and the money's the same, where do I have a better chance, realistically, do I think, to win a World Series? With the Cubs or with the Blue Jays? And I know the Blue Jays play in the division of the gauntlet that is the AL East. But, man, with all the young talent they have there, and, assuming if you're Shohei that you're going to be able to come back and pitch at some point, Toronto does make a lot of sense. It'll give them the best lineup in baseball, probably. The Rangers and some others will have, the Astros will have something
Yankees
to say
maybe
about
there now
that.
with Juan Soto.
Yeah, but it'll put you right there, and it's a really cool city. I don't think Shohei Ohtani cares about going to Canada. He's not going to be in his home country, whether he's playing in the States or in Canada. So what difference does it make, So I don't know. I've always thought Toronto made a lot of sense. If I had to bet money on it, and I don't know if I'm sure there's a line on it, I'd bet Toronto. And I would have bet Toronto we haven't really talked about it, but we haven't really talked about any of the baseball offseason. The Rule 5 draft happened. All these things happened. But I don't know. It's been interesting, but it just fascinates me that Juan Soto gets traded to the Yankees, and it's like, meh, okay.
Well, yeah, and now you're pairing up Juan Soto with Aaron Judge in that lineup, and the one thing that I saw a lot of people talking about after that trade happened was that you've got Yankee Stadium with kind of the short porch in right field, and that's kind of tailor-made for Juan Soto's game, and so you could see, potentially big time production from Soto in that lineup with the protection around him. So I do think it's a good spot. I always hate it when, the Yankees go and do huge blockbuster things. I just, I can't stand it, but it made sense. I actually thought last week, the Mariners, they sort of unloaded, some players in a salary dump. They traded Jared Kelenic and a couple of other players. I kind of thought, okay, maybe they're ramping up their pursuit of Shohei Ohtani. Maybe they're going to trade for Juan Soto. That hasn't happened. And so, as of now, it's Juan Soto to the Yankees. And man, who knows where Shohei Ohtani will end up. It's kind of interesting because I've read all along about what the Angels are doing in wanting to try to retain Shohei Ohtani. And it kind of seems like their strategy is just crossing their fingers and hoping that he decides he wants to come back. And I think that's unlikely.
Yeah, no, he ain't coming back to the Angels. No. I don't know. We'll see. We'll follow it. I think the Blue Jays would be a fun fit. The only thing about it is, he's not going to have the impact off the field as far as like marketability and all that stuff if he goes to Toronto. But I mean, how much of that do you need when you're making $600 million?
I'd love to see him in Chicago. I would love to see him as a Chicago Cub.
Be a cool fit.
And look at that division, as it stands right now. The Brewers, obviously,
winnable.
they lose Craig Counsell. But it sounds like they're in a little bit of a rebuild right now. Rumors are that they could be trading Corbin Burns this offseason. The Cardinals are kind of in a rebuild. They were underwhelming last season. You got the Reds, who are exciting. They're young, but they're probably a step or two away, I think, from legitimately competing. And then the Pirates are the Pirates. So, I mean, that's a winnable division with Craig Counsell at manager there. If you pair up him and Shohei, that'd be a lot of fun.
It would be. Well, look, Shohei's, I mean, he is still this unicorn. Even if he never pitches again, he's going to hit.
Yeah.
Right. And I think he will pitch again. It may be a different role, but I mean, I don't know. It's like the entire baseball offseason, and I've heard others say this, and they're right. Like the entire baseball offseason is just like held hostage by this. But I haven't. I missed that my Rangers signed Kirby a couple of days ago. The reliever that it could really help them, but. Rule 5 draft yesterday. We got the Major League Baseball draft order. The Royals get 6. I'm not sure what their odds. Where were their odds at to get like 4, I think, or 3 maybe. But they get 6. You got two teams that were long shots to get it in that lottery. In Cleveland, getting the top pick, which is interesting. I'm in on the draft lottery. I like it. I do think it will curtail some of the tanking. I hope, but I do like the lottery. I think that. It will be fun for baseball. Anything else in baseball that's of relevance?
No, I don't know.
A couple Rule 5 guys.
Yeah, the only thing that I'll say about the draft, and this is a different conversation for a different day, I think Major League Baseball has a draft issue, and it's not necessarily about the tanking. It's just the level of interest in it because these teams are drafting players that they're never going to see, not never going to see, but it's going to be a while before you more than likely see them playing for the major league team. So it's hard to really get locked in, at least in my opinion, for the Major League Baseball draft, maybe outside of the first couple of picks, because, like it's going to be a couple of years, maybe before you ever see these guys in the big leagues, if at all.
But they're never going to be able to solve that problem, right? Like you can't fix that. That's just I'm
sport. Just saying I have a hard time locking into it. Just solely.
I have but nothing they can do. I mean, the lottery will help.
You're talking about the draft lottery, and I'm like, I don't really care. I don't care. It doesn't matter.
Well, I don't. I'm not like I care because it could impact, ultimately the team down the road. It's not like I'm like I don't watch it though.
Maybe it will. It will. I mean,
by the way, this is a total aside. Did we ever talk about this? I don't know that we did. This is like left field. Speaking of the lottery, it had it on my mind. Everybody hated the Royals draft pick, right? I couldn't stand it. As I'm watching the postseason this year with the Rangers, I had forgotten Evan Carter. Everybody loves Evan Carter. So if you remember back to the COVID draft, Evan Carter was drafted in either in the first or the second round, and the Rangers were railed for that pick. He wasn't even on big boards. So like the websites didn't even have him in their top 200 or whatever. Like that's how out of left field that pick was. And I mean, like worst pick of all time. Who is this? Nobody even knows who it is. He's not even on our list. We don't even have the video queued up for him. We don't have anything. And that was Evan Carter, by the way. So just maybe a ray of sunshine potentially for the Royals. If it's not always. You talk about the uncertainty of the MLB draft. Sometimes, you never know, even if they are supposed to be the best guy. The Royals and the Rangers and plenty of others have taken guys that can't miss, sure things that miss all the time. And then Evan Carter ends up being what he is, and he's going to be a star.
There's obviously a lot of talent that, they realized in him. But I would also gather that there was some good development of him also, which that's been something the Royals have lacked in their farm system, as we all know, for a long time.
So have the Rangers. But, just as far as picking players, just to your point of how unpredictable it is and how hard that makes it, that example jumped to the forefront during the postseason. I was like, Evan Carter is the guy that they drafted that nobody had, like that. It all came flooding back to me because he'd been he had elevated through the system for a while, but I had forgotten that's who that was.
And look, like you're going to have the NFL draft and the NBA draft, and you're going to see a majority of those guys right away.
These players, right? Yeah.
There are, in the Major League Baseball draft, it could be 5 years, and you're like, oh my God, I forgot about that guy. He was drafted half a decade ago, and here he is finally playing in the big leagues. Like that, I have a hard time even paying any attention to the Major League Baseball draft. And I love baseball.
I do.
I love Major League Baseball, but I have a hard time.
I watch it because I enjoy it, but it's not the same. It's not. All right, 869-1240 is the number to call. Let's do a giveaway here, Jad. Let's do Jad, what do you want to give away? You pick. What do you want to give away here? What do we need to give away right now?
I don't know. Let's say Illuminations.
Okay. Illuminations at Botanica with over 2 million lights. Illuminations has been ranked among the top 10 in light shows across the country. A 62-foot Christmas tree you don't want to miss, and the new Candyland Storybook Gingerbread House. A pair of tickets right now to Illuminations at Botanica. To our first caller to the IHOP hotline, 869-1240. We'll come back with more Sports Daily right after this. All right. Welcome back. Sports Daily. Did you see Marquette house Texas last night? Like, the Big 12 is just crushing it this year for everybody except Marquette. That's kind of how it's looked to me. Like, it's the Big 12 and it's Marquette, apparently, because they've now beaten Texas and Kansas bad. And, if you look at the college basketball standings and you look at the Big 12 right now, you've got still give me 2 seconds. There are a number of unbeaten teams still in college basketball. These are the list of unbeaten teams just in the Big 12. Baylor, Houston, BYU, Oklahoma, TCU, and Cincinnati, Tommy, have not lost games yet. And then you've got Kansas, right? And then you've got Texas also in that mix, among others who are still going to be really good. Like, the Big 12 is off to a great start. The only teams that are not looking good, very good, are Oklahoma State and West Virginia. Those are the only two teams right now. Everybody else looks good to me.
Well, and then, by the way, if you add in the teams that will be joining the Big 12 next year, you've got Arizona right now at number 1, right, Kansas at number 2, and Houston at number 3. So you got boom, 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 Big 12 or future Big 12 teams all in the top 3. Marquette, you mentioned last night beating Texas. That was a good bounce back for them. They lost by 11 to Wisconsin on Saturday. And so that was good. A team that had been around the top 5 in the top 5. They had dropped down to number 8 after the loss to Wisconsin. That was a good bounce back for them by not only beating Texas, but dominating Texas by 21.
Man, just crazy. Crazy.
Tyler Kolek, by the way, I don't know if he's going to get the recognition as one of the top players in the country. I don't know if he's on. I haven't looked at like Naismith watch lists and things like that. I know you've got players like Hunter Dickinson and Zach Edey and others that are probably on that list. If Tyler Kolek isn't on the list for Marquette, he should be. I mean, he's looked incredible this season.
By the way, Wisconsin's good. Like, they're real good.
They are.
They've made me a little bit of money. They keep getting undervalued, I think, in the college basketball space. We're in this weird gap. I don't like it. We're in a weird gap here without games until Saturday, right? I don't think any of the 3 play until Saturday, and I don't like it. That's the one problem with early week games is you have this big gap in between.
You got a big KU Missouri border war at Allen Fieldhouse on Saturday to look forward to.
Yeah, KU's going to crush them.
Okay.
KU's going to crush them.
All right.
Yeah, we don't have that line yet. I think KU's going to crush them. They play well. They play up to the, and I don't know how good Missouri is. I thought Missouri looked fine against Wichita State. I think that they're going to be an okay team. I think they're a borderline tournament team, and I think KU is going to smash them this weekend. At Allen Fieldhouse, you kidding? Like that place is going to be nuts. And KU, like, it's easy for KU to get up for that game. They're going to roll in that game.
Well, they rolled against the Tigers in Columbia a year ago, if memory serves.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to win by 40 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But they're gonna beat them again. I mean, I'm pretty confident there, and we'll see what the line is. I would guess that line ends up at 12.5.
I still don't know if I would take that. Not that I
wouldn't take.
Not that I don't have confidence in the Jayhawks against Missouri, but we talked yesterday about the struggles that the Jayhawks have in covering a number, and
in covering a number against bad teams.
But in general, they're 4-5 against the spread this season in their 9 games. They're under.
Well, they would have covered it against. They would have covered it against Tennessee and UConn and Kentucky, though. So like the big time games they have played is when they have really stepped up. How by the way, Naquan Tomlin can play once he graduates right away. He hadn't played this year. You think Kansas would have any interest there?
I don't want to get in trouble. Yeah, I mean, I would absolutely. I think that things would burn down if Naquan Tomlin went to the University of Kansas. Let me just leave it at that.
Let me say this. It's a fit. It makes sense. And it's easy, right? And if Naquan Tomlin now has a bone to pick, which of course he will,
and
why not?
It would be the greatest troll job in the history of troll jobs from the University of Kansas to their rivals to the West.
You know what KU could use? A fifth starter that can play defense, maybe some length, right, that can create offensively. Interesting. We'll take a look at that as we progress. He's gonna play somewhere. I think. I hope. God, I hope he does. So we'll just keep our just something to ponder out there. 869-1240. We'll come back. We'll wrap it up. Tell you what's on tap next. All right. That's it. Did you see Taylor Swift talking a little bit finally about her relationship with Travis Kelce?
I did, yeah.
Makes me like Taylor Swift a little bit more.
She's a football fan now.
Well, the fact that she used the term metal as hell, I appreciate. The fact that she said, she didn't really care if she's pissing off dads, Brads, and Chads because she doesn't know when she's on. I love all that. So anyway, if you're on the fence there. All right, we got a lot coming up. A lot of giveaways. We'll be back tomorrow. Today, though, regular day of programming here on the air. So you'll enjoy that. Bob and Jeff here locally. For Tommy and Jad, I'm Jacob. We'll see you tomorrow.